Shalom uvracha, greetings to all of our viewers and listeners. Thank you very, very much for participating in the shiurim. And today we have a shiur that's very, very close to my heart. Very important topic, especially in the modern world that we exist. And the title of the shiur is Causing Our Fellow Man Pain and Suffering. So the point of departure will be the Medrash in Parshas Toldot. So it's within the framework and context of Parshas Hashavua. This is Parshas Toldot. So the Medrash tells us, Medrash Rabbo, Kishmoya Esav, when Esav heard that the brachas went over to Yaakov, Vayitzak, Se'oke Gedoyla Umara. As soon as he heard his father's words, he cried out a great and bitter cry. Especially when Yitzchak said, Avacheyu gam baruch yeh, I blessed him, and he too shall be blessed. The brachas are not reversible, they're incontrovertible. So the Chazal tell us something very strange, something which is incomprehensible. We can't understand it. Zo'oka achas hizik Yankov Avinu le'Esav, emosai nifraloi, that which Yankov Avinu caused Esav to cry out a bitter cry. So the Jewish people were punished for this. And Chazal point out the identical terminology. B'Shushan Abira, it says, Vayizak Zo'oka Gedoyla Umara, the exact same words that the Torah ascribes to Esav. Vayitzak Se'oke Gedoyla Umara. And here it says Se'oke Gedoyla Umara. And the Chazal add that there was three demoyas, 3 tears that Esav shed, and because of that there was a gezerah, something which we said a moment ago we can't understand, the midah keneged midah of Homon Arosha, Lahashmit Velara Galabed Eskola Yehudi. This is what the Chazal say. As we mentioned a moment ago, this is just about incomprehensible. Not that we understand the inscrutable conduct and will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but there are certain things that are simply beyond our intellectual grasp. Why? Because that which Yankov undertook, his shtadlus, his endeavor to receive the brachas, was not something that he undertook himself. He was interested in the brachas. We mentioned in the earlier shiur, Yankov was a ish tam yoshev ha'olam. He wasn't interested necessarily in the brachas. Nevertheless, since he was a ish tam yoshev ha'olam, he was a ben Torah. He was a fine, outstanding, dedicated individual to Torah and the values of Torah. So Yankov simply carried out the orders of Rivka. Rivka told him that he should undertake whatever he had to undertake in order to get the brachas. How did Rivka know that the brachas should go to Yaakov? So the Ramban tells us she went to Shem Ve'ever. She herself was a great Neviah. And they said, Baruch HaKodesh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants that the brachas should indeed go to Yaakov and not to Esav. So he carried out not only the mandate of his mother, of Kibbutz, but also his mother carried out the mandate of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So why is it that the Jewish people had to suffer a potential genocide in the hands of Homon Arosha because of the Tzaka Gedoyla Umara that Esav cried out? Very difficult to understand this. Very difficult. This was many, many years later, thousands of years later, very difficult to understand. parenthetically, we should try to understand if this is true, like the Ramban says, and of course the Ramban says that it is true, that it was the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Yaakov should get the brachas, because without that there would be absolutely no existence of Klal Yisrael. Without the brachas of Avram, Birchas Avram, that Yitzchak gave over to Yaakov, there would be absolutely no Knesset Yisrael. There would be no Jewish nation. So this was indeed necessary. So the question that everyone is perturbed, what was the reason that it couldn't go straight? Why could HaKadosh Baruch Hu not simply reveal his will directly to Yitzchak? Why did it have to go circumventing through Shem, Ve'ever, and Rivka, and through some sort of deceit, which it wasn't, because it was done al pi the Rotz of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it looked as if there was some sort of deceit involved over here. So why, if it could be going straight, if everything could have gone natural, in a natural way, so why simply could it not have been done that way? A pelagon, a very, very difficult one. So it would appear that the answer is provided by the Novi. The Novi said, we mentioned it also in the previous year, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Ohavti eschem amar Hashem, ve'amartem b'mei aftonu, halo ach esav hu liyankiv, ve'ohev es yankiv es esav sanesi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu responds, as it were, to a protagonist, Knesset Yisrael. Like Knesset Yisrael asks HaKadosh Baruch Hu, prove to us that you love us. V'amartem b'mei aftonu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu responds, Halo ach esav hu liYaakov, ve'ohev es yankiv es esav sanesi. That's the response. Why? The Maral points out that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would not speak about great miracles that he did for Klal Yisrael to save them from imminent danger in the course of the Jewish history. So the Maral points out that after Klal Yisrael was selected to be the chosen people already in Mitzrayim, so then HaKadosh Baruch Hu had an obligation to fulfill his part of the contractual covenant that he reached with Knesset Yisrael. Even before Matan Torah. Before Matan Torah, that was the official contract and covenant the HaKadosh Baruch Hu reached with Klal Yisrael. So if you have a covenant, a contract between two parties, so every party has its own obligations and responsibilities. So the Jewish people are in trouble, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's their partner, is obligated to save them. However, before Matan Torah, before there was a selection and an election of the Jewish people to be the chosen people, the object of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love, so we have a proof. What was the proof? That Esau was also a potential candidate to be the chosen people. Esau and Yaakov, they're both equal. Like we mentioned, Mishem, the Briskerov and the Ran, it's possible that Esau will be the chosen people. Esau will emanate the elect and select people that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will ultimately make a covenant with them. So, what happens if somebody is competing for a job with somebody else and he has the inside track and he's just about to get the job? The CEO, the executive of the company, the president of the company, chief executive officer, right, has two potential candidates for the job, and one has the inside track. And at the last minute, the rug is pulled out from under him, and it's given to the other candidate that till the last moment was an outsider and had little chance of attaining the position. So what would we say? What was responsible for this? Answer is, it would appear that it was not a type of cold, calculating, intellectual decision, but rather it was based on simple love for one person and hate for another person. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to answer Klal Yisrael, and we wanted to inculcate upon them that there's one and only one way which I can prove to you that I love you. And that was through the essential selection of Yankov Avinu. The brachas should have gone to Esav, and whoever had the brachas will be the select people. They'll be the chosen people. They will be the B'nai Bris, the ones that will achieve a kavanah with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It should have been Esav. And only at the last moment, through a circumventory type of methodology, it went over to Yaakov. So what does this prove? What is it? A strong indication for Oya ves Yankiv ves Esav Senesi, because of hate and despise for Esav. So I took away the brachas that naturally should have been granted to Esav, and through a circumvental fashion, it went over to Yaakov. Very interesting. Nevertheless, Esav was hurt. He had a tsar. And that tsar, Klal Yisrael, had to suffer many years later. Why is this totally incomprehensible? We can't understand it. At the end of the day, bottom line, only Esav had tsar. And here, when it came to retribution for what Yankov did, so an entire Jewish nation in Persia, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people, were in danger of genocide. Difficult to understand. What can we understand from this medrash? So Reb Reuven Grozovsky undertook to explain to us what we understand from this medrash. And he brings down Rabbeinu Bechaya in Parshas Bereshis. Rabbeinu Bechaya has told us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, insofar as Adam Harishon is concerned, as well as every individual is the same thing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu placed Adam Harishon in Gan Eden Atachto, and in paradise. And what was the reason he placed him there? Liyos misaneg, that he should have happiness, cheerfulness, ubishtasheya, kiritzoinoi, and he should be happy, like he wills to be happy, and he'll have a fixed parnosa from the Atzayagan, he'll have what to eat, and he'll have what to drink, minachle Eden, and his clothing was ananai kavod. It was surrounded by the clouds of glory. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted Adam Harishon, Amidosoi, his existence in Gan Eden, to be betainug rav godol ve'otzom l'roiv, tremendous happiness, tremendous cheerfulness, without a shir l'malo. And that Rabbeinu Bechaya says is the purpose that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, to be mativ im abrius. The hativ im abrius, says Rabbeinu Bechaya, that was the very purpose that the world was created. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechadish betuva b'chol yom tov ma'aseh bereishis ve'omu la'oisa oichem gedolim ki de'olam chazdoi. So Batanya explains very beautifully that Kilo Olam Chazer, the same chesed Olam Yivoneh, the same kindness that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was motivated by to create Shamayim V'Oretz V'Chol Tzvom Yesh Meyayin Ex Nihilo in 6 days. So that entire act of ultimate kindness, the hate of a Brias, to be kind to the Brias, so that occurs once again. There's a renewal of that each and every day. Chesed kel kol hayom. But what's the level, the sheer, the measurement of that chesed? The same chesed that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world and Odom Rishon. So therefore, explains Reb Reuven Grozovsky, a person was not created to be hurt, to be embarrassed, to be humiliated, to suffer pain. And if his fellow man does so this is contrary to the very purpose that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us, that our Maker made us. That is the purpose that we are here in the world. And it's interesting, said Reb Reuven, this is of course based on the Ramak and Toldot Avoid, that we have a chiyuv of imitatio day, to go in the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, mahu rachum, afato rachum. And the Ramak and Toldot Avoid points out that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Rachmanis doesn't cease. Chesed HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single second, even when somebody does an Aveira. Who sustains every individual? Who gives him his energies, his powers? HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He created us. He's our Maker. His hands rest very heavily on our shoulders. He indeed gives us the capacities and abilities, and even if we utilize them to go against the Ratzon HaBorei, again HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us those koiches and those energies. Unbelievable, because the Yud Gimel Midah Shel Rachamim is one Yisod. It is constant, it is consistent. There is absolutely no break whatsoever. So if we're mechuyev or lachta b'drachav to go in the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so we are also mechuyev on the contrary, just to do kindness, just to be generous, every single second, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So if somebody, like says the Toldot Avoid, would do the opposite, would hurt somebody, would bring about tsar, so that is the opposite of the entire purpose of the Bria. And that is why Reb Reuven Grozovsky understood, as best we can understand and comprehend this, that a tsar of an individual never comes to an end. Once somebody was mitzayah somebody, a person hurt somebody else, so that hurt is a continuous hurt. As long as that person lives, it has an effect on him, it has an impact on him. Unbelievable. And we have over here a tremendous klal. Reuven Grozovsky told us we can formulate a very, very important rule here. And that is that if, God forbid, a person is punished by somebody else, a punishment accrued to somebody through the actions of someone else, to that extent, tsar, hurting somebody, has an impact, not only in the person, but lemalo too, even if he's a Talmid Chacham, etc. He cannot dwell together with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There will be a siluk ashchina, because he's goyim ra'al chaver, he's causing evil to his friend. So Reb Reuven went and said a lomdish, that he is kecheref v'sayiv shehargen al yodo. He himself becomes the sword. He himself becomes the knife. Not that he is he and he's utilizing an instrument of a knife, but we look upon him that he himself is transmogrified, transformed to be a sayif and a sakin. And he brings a proof from the Gemara in Sanhedrin by the Nechnokim, those Dalet Mises Bezdin. When somebody is choked, so the Sudar has to be buried, because through the Sudar somebody was injured, even though it's a mitzvah of Dalet Mises Bezdin. It's mitzvah Hashem. And the worst says Reb Ruvain, is when somebody does an act, kavana, intentionally, beratzon, willingly, and he utilizes the Torah. He justifies it al pi Torah. So I'm hurting you, I'm ridiculing you, scorning you, correct? Or I'm bringing about type of humiliation, because that's the way it should be al pi Torah. God forbid. The Torah is a Torah's chesed. We don't know of any other Torah. And in this specific case, when he rationalizes that al pi Torah, so it's not only a kardim lakma, but not only the Torah becomes a means to, so to speak, justify an evil end, but he's utilizing the Torah to be a saif and a chodis. And he himself becomes a saif and a chodis. He himself becomes a spear and a sword. What do you do with the spear and the sword that hurt somebody? Ein lokim ba'olam. He has no schus kiyum in the world. This sounds extreme, and perhaps it is, but at least we understand a little bit philosophically, not just the medrash, but we understand why there's such a horrible Torah distaste and downright hatred and enmity for somebody who is Mitzayah Chaveru. Many years ago, Moshe Sher, who was the president of Agudas Yisrael in America, came to see the Beis Yisrael, the Admor, the Rebbe of Ger. And one time when he came there for advice, so he came out from the room of the Ger Rebbe after he had discussed with him the issues concerning Klal Yisrael, and his face was like a sunrise in the morning. His countenance was full of rays of light. And he came over to a group of people and he said, I told over a story about Moshe Feinstein to the Beis Yisrael. And the Beis Yisrael said, Mitzvah gedoylo lefarsamoy. It's a great mitzvah to publicize this story. So I'll tell you the story. The same story I told the Beis Yisrael, the Ger Rebbe, that Moshe Feinstein, we all know, had a yeshiva in the Lower East Side, the Sifta Teferes Yisrael, and he was never successful with the yeshiva. Insofar as quantity of Bachrim is concerned, he had in the tens of Bachrim, and they were not top-level Bachrim. A few were very, very good, but most were not the regular yeshiva Bachrim. Most of the yeshiva consisted, Meshach all the years, of irregular. Why is that? He was the Gadol Ador, if not the Gadol, one of the Gedolei Adoros, because Grand Street, where it's located, Lower East Side, is a dangerous place. Next to Chinatown, a very dangerous place. And people just didn't want to send their children there. Parents were afraid for the welfare of their children, so they didn't go there. Avreichim also didn't want to go to such a horrible place. So Moshe Sher came up with a brilliant idea to move the Sifta Teferes Yisrael to Borough Park. Agudas Yisrael acquired a building, and they're going to move the yeshiva over to Borough Park, which was already a Makom Torah, and Moshe Feinstein will be from the big, big Roshi yeshivas in the world, not just the big Pesach, not just the great personality. He'll also be, in actuality, a great Rosh Yeshiva. So Moshe Feinstein did not exactly express great happiness when he heard this, but he did inquire exactly where is the building located. So we told him. So that Moshe said, isn't that across the street from another yeshiva? He said, yeah, it's across the street from another yeshiva. So Moshe Feinstein said, I want to tell you, but Moshe, I'm not interested. You know why? Because after you put up the big placards, the big signs that Moshe Feinstein is going to say a shir psicha, its first shir, on a certain day in the new locale, so there might be a bacher from the Rosh Yeshiva Shir across the street that will say, you know what, he's curious to see how Reb Moshe Feinstein says a shir. Heard greatness of Reb Moshe Feinstein, there's a Gan HaGoinim, but he would like to hear how he says a shir. Even though he belongs in his Rosh Yeshiva Shir, to have curiosity, he's going to go across the street and listen to it. And the Rosh Yeshiva will notice, with the Yeshiva Vedi Bachram, and one of the better guys, only somebody who's a very good Bachram would be curious, is not there, and for one moment, he'll be hurt. For one moment. That hurt will go by once he starts the shir. Said the great Reb Moshe Feinstein, something which we bechlal don't understand. We're so far removed from it that we can't even begin to understand the depth of it. It's better for me not to have a yeshiva of 200 bachrim, not to be a big Rosh Yeshiva, not to be marbitz Torah, to the adorim, to the flocks of Jewish boys. Much better for me not to have it than to have it and indirectly causing a Rosh Yeshiva or someone else to feel hurt for one moment. The Beis Israel said a mitzvah gedolah lefarsamai. This is the way the Gedolah Yisrael understood. Reuven Grozovsky enlightened us. Without that, we wouldn't understand too much. But he enlightened us in one of the most important principles of Yiddishkeit, of Judaism, what it is to hurt someone else. And there's another ma'aseh which I'm reluctant to say, but I'll mention it anyway, briefly. Could be a mistaken to mention it. It's a very, very delicate type of sentiment. But once you say it's a mistake, so perhaps it will be easily forgiven. That we found out by the Shiva of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach that for many, many years, in the tens of years, he did not invite Shabbos, Yom Tov, his grandchildren. And no one exactly knew why it is, because he was a very, very freiliche, happy person, loved people, loved children, all types of children, his own children, Hasidische, Litvische, loved, he and the rabbis loved children, but they never invited for Shabbos and Yom Tov their grandchildren. They had a lot of grandchildren. So nobody knew exactly why. By the Shiva was this Gala was revealed that Shlomo Zalman was very, and his rabbis were very, very reluctant to invite the grandchildren because 3 of his children did not have children. So Shlomo Zalman was afraid that maybe they will feel hurt, as if they could not produce a certain nachas ruach for Shlomo Zalman and the Rebbetzin because they didn't have grandchildren. They didn't have children, ipso facto grandchildren of Reb Shlomo Zalman. So it was better for Reb Shlomo Zalman not to have such enjoyable, such rejoicement on Yom Tov, enjoyable Shabbos with his grandchildren, less 3 of his children who don't have children would feel hurt. This is great, great sensitivity, delicate sensitivity insofar as hurting somebody is concerned. And the Chazon Ish said over once, there was a 1947, there was a Derech Chassid that was nifter. He was a lone survivor of World War II, didn't live too long afterwards, lost his entire family, and he lived next door to Maran Chazon Ish. So they had the Levaya, Chalamoid Pesach. So one of the representatives of Hasidei Gur wanted to say a hesped. So the Chazon Ish said, "You can't say a hesped. It's Chalamoid Pesach, ein maspidim aloch lemaisa. You can't be maspid." So the representative of Hasidei Gur said, but it's a tragedy. He said it's a tragedy, but halacha is the halacha. So then the Chazon Ish relented, and he said you can say hesped 3 or 4 words. Now to say a hesped, to say a eulogy in 3 or 4 words, that's like saying once. I mean, I had a boss that told me he never fired anybody. He had an institution, never fired anybody. So I told him the reason you didn't have to fire anybody because you made conditions they couldn't stay. So if somebody tells you to say a hesped, to say a eulogy in 3 or 4 words, so that's conditions that you can't say the hesped. So again, saying don't say. So this representative who happened to know this individual from the time he was a child said, Lo yasa l're'eh ro. He never made an evil to his friend. Lo yasa l're'eh ro. He was not goyim ra l'chavera. Never. So the Chazon Ish heard that. He went over to him, hugged him, and said, that's the greatest hesped I ever heard. A person goes through a lifetime and never having to hurt anybody? Just about impossible. Lo yasa l're'eh ro, but it says it, and he was that individual. And all day long, the Chazon Ish went with a tremendous hispailos, how an individual can reach such great heights. And he said, by the Beis HaChaim, halavai, they should say such a thing on me. Anyway, this is a little bit of enlightening in a very difficult medrash, and we hope that in the times of big trouble for Klal Yisrael, times of terroristic attacks, so we should make a tikkun in trying not to hurt anybody, and on the contrary, trying just to bring happiness, joy to our fellow man. That will help Klal Yisrael become united, and united we stand, divided we fall.